Hello everyone, my name is Anastasia and I'm glad to welcome you all to today's webinar. Well, getting the whole picture on customer relationship may take a lot of technical efforts and lead to a big and costly integration project when the data that matters for the interaction with customer is arranged outside the CRM system. And today I'm going to show you an approach how to allocate just important for end user data inside of the CRM interface, which decreasing integration investments and improving user experience. So today I'm going to show you how key events become trackable on client's timeline. As an example, a part of CRM system, we have scoring system. And this scoring system counts client tier based on score. The important event is that client's tier was changed. And our aim today is provide Sugar users with information about that this tier was changed. We suggest using timeline in Sugar because timeline interface help user to get the whole picture of relationships in convenient way. And also it's saving approximately 30 minutes per day for each proactive person. Also, timeline viewer add-on for Sugar may show key events occurred within CRM system as well as key events that collected from external system. So let's find out how we can provide users in Sugar with information that customer's tier was changed in scoring system. And to make it, there are 3 steps to perform. Firstly, let's prepare Sugar for retrieving of key events. Also, developers of scoring system should be involved to help with posting the data from scoring system in Sugar. The most commonly used approach is to use REST API for that. Finally, it goes to the receiving the external system data, scoring system data in Sugar and enable key event in the timeline. Definitely there are 2 ways on how we can perform the third step. Either it may be code development or Sugar configuration. Before our demo, let me say a few words about both these ways. So key events on timeline may be entered through custom code. So if you are a Sugar developer or you can make customization, so you may take a look on our article on site on how to create timeline entries through custom code. Today I would focus on configuring. For this I am using Logic Builder since it provides the possibility to design logic visually and receive ready-to-use functionality. So let's start our demo. I'll go to my browser. Here is Sugar and here are some timeline entries already. And we are going to create a new one here from scoring system. So we need to start from first step and it's prepare Sugar to receive data. For this, we need to create several records inside Sugar. First of all, we need to create some kind of timeline types, event types. Let's think what types it may be. Basically, there are 3 types of clients tier, like high, low, and medium. And it is significant event for user to when client reach each of these types. So I believe we need to create 3 event types: high score, low score, and medium score. For this, we are going to timeline events module and create a new records here. Let's create the first one. Firstly, we need to define the name of the event type. For example, first let it be high score. This name users will use in Sugar interface for searching, filtering, so it's better to give a clear and unique name. So the next we need to define the icon which will represent this event. For this I prepare several icons already. So let's choose first one. It's a high score. And then we need to define for which module we are configuring these types. And obviously it's client's module, and save the record. In the same way, we are going to create two more timeline events, like it is medium score, and icon for that is this one. Module is also clients, sorry. And the third one, timeline events entry, is low score. Low score. For this, we will use this one icon, and module is clients, and save the record. So we already created three types of our future timeline event, timeline entries. And now we specified icon, and now we are going to specify the message, what users will see in interface. For this, I will use templates as it is a convenient way to define any text message. So I go to the LB templates module and create a new record here. Firstly, I need to define a name of my template, for example, score. And here I will specify the message, what text user will see when key event occurs. And there are two types of templates. Base template, which allows me to use text and variables. And later these variables I will be able to fill with values. And also the second type is Smarty. Smarty template allows me to use conditional formatting. And it is what I want to use today, because I want to highlight the text based on the event. For example, when it's low score, I want to highlight it in red. Conditional formatting means that we have some conditions here. And for condition, we will use a score itself. So it will be the variable that we will retrieve from our score system. So first I define this variable score and start to build my, not to build, but just type my condition. If you're familiar with Smarty templates, it's usual Smarty template. So how I do it? I say that if my score, it's variable, so I define it in this way. So if score is less than 40, for example, I output information like low score and then the value of this score. Second condition, else when my score is less than or equal to 40 and score is more than 40 and less than 60. I say that I will output that this is medium score. And also I want to output the value of score on the timeline. And finally, if my score is greater than 60, I say that this is high score and want to output the value as well. And close my condition. I want to do some formatting here. First of all, I want a larger font size, and also I want to highlight low score in red and also bold, medium score in orange color and also bold, and high score I want to be green and also in bold. And save this record. So we already defined the icon for our future timeline entry for our key event, and also we define a template of message that will be shown on the timeline. And actually about configuring and storing timeline, that is all. And we now proceeding to next step. Actually, it's the same step of configuring Sugar to receive events from external system, but we need to create some kind of point where some kind of entry point where developer of scoring system will send data from scoring system, and we will define that how Sugar will react when data will be sent on this point. So for this, I navigate to the module LB service and create a new entry. First of all, I need to define a name, for example, get score or receive score. Here I will input a system name, and then I will pass this information to developer. So let's give a clear name, but we have not much options here, so let's just name get score. And also on the right side we have arguments. That means that we can define here the arguments in which developer from external system may put values. For example, what we want to retrieve from this scoring system. I believe firstly we need to know the ID of the customer, which tier was changed. So let's just name, as we said, customer ID. And the second argument, I believe it is a score value itself. So we define score and save a record. So basically, we just created a new endpoint in Sugar REST API. And then we will be able to pass this information to scoring system developer. So he would be able to send a request in Sugar on this endpoint. And now we are going to describe what happened next when developer sends this information. What we are going to do with this customer ID and score, how we output this information in Sugar. And for this, I go to the Logic Builder by Logic Builder integrascrm.com, waiting and signing in system. And now I'm going to connect to my Sugar instance. For this info chat section, in import Sugar metadata, I've already have prefilled URL to Sugar and Sugar user credentials, and click on import. So I'm waiting while Logic Builder imports all metadata with which I'm going to operate. And now we need to define a start element. When we are going to describe reaction or behavior on external call, we use a start operator which calls on service call and put it onto canvas. Let's zoom a little bit. So here in service name we define which call to which service we are going to describe now. And we have only one get score that we created just. And now let's actually build what happened next. So we need to create a timeline entry here. Basically, it's create a new entity in timeline module. And when we are going to create something, create entity, we use operator with the same name, create entity, and put it into canvas. Here we need to define a module. Entity of which we are going to create is timeline. And it is not enough only to create entity, we need to set values in attributes, like when we create a record in Sugar. So when we want to set some values into fields, we use set entity attributes operator. And here we define what entity we are going to describe. And here are all fields of our timeline. Obviously, we do not need to fill all of them, but some of them are necessary. And first one, we need to define where this timeline will be shown, in which module. And we already told that it is client's module. And for defining this parameter, we use attribute target module. The system name is parent type. And we need to define value clients here. For this, I will use constant operator, and I will use drop-down value constant, because I know that there is a drop-down called module list in Sugar. And here I need to find the module what I'm looking for, and it is client's module. So I input this value into field target module or parent type. It is not enough to specify only the name of the module, because we need to specify a record for which this timeline will be shown. So we need to specify ID of the client or client's ID. So, and this can be done by defining value in field parent ID. And where can I get this ID? It stores here in service. Remember that we defined two service arguments, and first it was customer ID, which I will retrieve from scoring system. So when we want to read some arguments from service, we use operator get service parameters, put it into canvas. Let me put it here. I specify the service and choose parameters that I'm looking for. Is customer ID. Let me zoom out a little bit. Also, let me highlight this and put it this side, just for more readability. So here I will have an ID of a customer. I assume that I will receive from scoring system ID, client's ID that equals to Sugar customer ID. But of course, if you receive some external system ID, you will be able to find client record by this ID. But for now, I'm just take this customer ID and input it into parent ID field in my timeline. So we define where this key event will be shown for which client. The next field that we need to specify is message. We created a template and now we need to use it. So there is a field called rich text message in which I can put the result of processing my template. And when I want to process template, that means I want to input values into variables. I use operator get HTML text from template. Here in this operator, I have all my templates from my instance, and I'm looking for this one in score that we created recently. And here I need to pick up all variables and map them with values. So here I want to put a value of score from my external system, from scoring system. Again, I need to return to the service parameters and pick up one more parameter, score, get its value, and input it, map it with parameter score in template. And result of the processing this template, I want to output in rich text message in my timeline. So this is the text that users will see in the timeline. And there is one more field that we need to define. It's called event type. Remember, we created 3 timeline events entries: high score, low score, and medium score. And we need to define to which timeline event this particular key event from external system we must relate. So, for example, we receive from external system that customer tier was changed, and now we need to evaluate whether it's low, high, or medium score. So now we need to input some conditions, some evaluation. And when we are talking about conditions or evaluations, we can use in Logic Builder operator branch. So let me zoom out a little bit, put this creation a little bit aside. And here I choose operator branch, which allows me to build a condition and divide my logic on 2 passes, true or false, based on conditions that I input here. And first of all, we need to evaluate value in parameter score. And firstly, let's say that let's check whether this score is less than 40. It's constant number 40. So if yes, I put this condition here, right? So we check whether score is less than 40. And if yes, we need to retrieve those timeline events entities that we created. And we are looking for entity that is called low score. So now I'm going to search, may say in this way, search for record timeline events. And when I want to find some record or entity, I use retrieve entities by attributes. Let me put again this a little bit aside. So I put retrieve entities by attributes. I'm looking for timeline events, for record in timeline events module. And I'm going to find record by name, for example. And I specify here the name by using constant string. And as we say, if score is less than 40, we are looking for event type called low score. So when this condition is true, we are looking for timeline event named low score. And what we need to get from this entity, it is ID of the record. So I get this ID, and then let's check whether it is not less than 40. So we have one more condition here, and again I will put branch operator, because now I need to evaluate whether this score is greater than 60. So I put the score value here. I compare this score with constant 60 and put this condition here. Also, I link with previous false control flow path, because when score is not less than 40, I go here and check whether this score is greater than 60. And if yes, again, I need to do the same step. I am looking for timeline events record by name, and as name I specify high score, because when score is more than 60, it is high score. And again, let me again put it aside. Again, I want to, why I do it? Because I need to get ID of this record. And finally, we checked whether it's score less than 40. We checked whether it's more than 60. And when not, so between 40 and 60, we are looking for timeline events. Oops, not related entities. Now we are looking entities by attributes. We are looking timeline events again by name, and we need to define a name. It's a medium score, and put it here. And again, oh, I forgot here specify the field that I'm looking for. I'm looking for ID, and I perform the same step again. I retrieve from this timeline events entity an ID. So I, based on value in score, I will have one of these IDs, and I need to put this ID in timeline field called event type ID. So basically, I need to relate key event to the event type. But I can just link all these three IDs into this one field event type. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use variables. Imagine that it is some kind of temporary storage where I can put what I need and then extract from this storage what I'm looking for. So I'm using operator set variable. Give this variable some name, like let it be entity, not entity, like event type, and I fill this variable with value of timeline event ID, and do the same step for all my three possible passes. So if my score is greater than 60, my flow will go through this pass. And finally, again, I set in my some kind of temporary storage ID of this timeline event. And finally, I link all these passes to proceed to creating the timeline record. And we will return to our creation timeline entry. Here in event type, we need to put an ID value. So I need to return to my storage, and now I am not setting the value here. I need to extract this value. And for this, I use operator get variable. I here specify a name. I just copy paste from previous step where I specify this variable, and link value into this event type ID. So we defined all necessary fields for our timeline, And what we need to do next is to save this timeline, because we said that we set values into fields, and now we need to save the record in the same way as we do in Sugar. When we create something, set values in field, and we click on Save button. Here we put Save Entity Operator. So let's quickly go back and see what we built. So let me just return on the beginning of my logic. So when some external call appears on this service, I get parameters, read parameters from this service. I expect two parameters to be passed here. It's a value of the score and it is customer ID. And then I'm starting to evaluate value into score. So, for example, we received this call, and let's assume that the value 45. So we through control flow go to the first check and check whether 45 is less than 40. No, it is not less. So we go to the false path and check here whether 45 greater than 60. No, it is not. So we go on the last path, false here. We are looking for timeline events record called medium score. And we extract ID of this timeline event record, put it into temporary storage, and through control flow goes to the creation of timeline entry. We said that we want to create a new record in the timeline, and we define attributes. We specify where we want to see this timeline. We specify what we want to see there, a message. And finally, we bind this timeline key event with type, where we specified in Sugar icon and name. And finally, we save our record. And now we visually represented our logic. We describe how we will react when call from external system comes to Sugar. And now we need to deploy these changes into Sugar instance. For this, I will save my visual presentation for future use. For example, if I'm going to change something. So let's name it, for example, process score request, for example, or maybe scoring request. Save. I'm just save this visual presentation, and to deploy this logic into Sugar, I need to generate Sugar package. So I click on generate, and zip package downloaded on my computer, and I go to Sugar now, go to the admin section. I'm going to deploy into Sugar this zip package like any other Sugar package. I go to the module loader and download file here. So let me just go to the downloads, show this file and folder, and input it here, and click upload, then install, then commit. And now this package is deploying into Sugar, so logic that we just built represented to the understandable for Sugar code. And now let's try how it works in action. But previously, let me say a word about what we are going to say to developer of scoring system, because I didn't mention it yet. So what we done right now is deployed a logic what will be happen when this call from external system comes to Sugar, but how to make this call? Obviously, we asked about it developer, but we need to say him or her what will be how this external call may be performed. So I returned now to LB services records that we created, and let me just copy paste for you here an example of request that will be done by developer. So this LB services record created a new Sugar REST API endpoint, and all what scoring system developer may do is just create a post request to Sugar REST API. On this link, as you may see here in link, there is a name of the service that we defined. And also we say to developer what arguments there are in this service. So you may see here are two arguments, customer ID and score. And these values will be filled by scoring system. So developer just put values into these arguments. And developer also implement this call in appropriate place in scoring system. So for example, when in scoring system client's tier changes, scoring system must perform a call to Sugar on this URL post request with these arguments, with values in these arguments. So when this call is performing, we already described how Sugar reacts when describes logic in Logic Builder, and we already deployed this logic. So let's see how it works in action. For this, let's choose some customer. For example, this one. Yes. I copy an ID of a customer, and here I have a mockup of scoring system. And what I've done, I just input ID of customer and click calculate. And here are some algorithm performs to calculate the score. And then let's return to Sugar and see whether we have some result. Basically, whether we have a score for our client. So let's go to the timeline, and hooray, here we have result. So here we see that there is the client changed its tire to the low score, and you may see here why I used conditional formatting. Obviously, I could create 3 different templates and use them in 3 situations, but it's easier to just put condition in template and say, for example, here our score is less than 40, so please output in red text low score. And let's try maybe one more customer. Again, let's choose an ID. I go to my some kind of scoring system, click calculate, and return to my point, refresh the page, and let's see whether what we have now. Okay, it's again a low score. So basically we see that what we've done today is working, and actually that is all what I want to show you. So hope you enjoyed today's webcast. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us in any way, in any convenient for you way. And thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye bye.